It all started with a car, not just any car, a midnight blue Tesla Model 3 Performance, blacked out rims, custom interior. For most people in Silicon Valley, it wasn't unusual. But for me, a 28-year-old software engineer grinding away at a mid-tier AI startup, it was a dream I finally made real. I'd been saving for years. My side projects, freelance gigs, and weekends coding while others partied had paid off. And when a stock I invested in during the pandemic blew up, I cashed out and placed the order that same night. I didn't expect anyone to care. I wasn't trying to flex, I just loved the car. But the moment I rolled into the office parking lot that Monday morning, something changed. People noticed, stared. My coworkers came over, excited. "Dude, that's sick. You finally got it. Let me take it for a spin after lunch." But when my boss, Darren, walked past it that afternoon, he stopped, just stared. No smile, no comment. Just a long pause, then kept walking toward the building. I should have known then. Darren was the kind of manager who always needed to be the most impressive person in the room. He wore $1,000 shoes to meetings and made sure everyone knew he was an early investor in several startups, though no one could verify that. I didn't think much of his reaction at first. Maybe he had a bad day. But then the meeting started changing. Suddenly, I was being questioned for things I'd never been questioned about before. "Are you sure this is the most efficient architecture? Why didn't you run this through me first?" He started nitpicking code I'd written flawlessly for 2 years. The same code he used to praise. I kept my head down, worked harder, stayed respectful. Then came the email. Subject line, 1.1 meeting tomorrow, urgent. It was from HR. I walked into the glass-walled conference room the next morning and saw Darren sitting next to a rep I barely knew. He didn't even let me sit down before speaking. "Effective immediately, your position at Nexus AI is terminated. You'll receive 2 weeks severance. We wish you the best." I froze. No warning, no performance review. I've hit every sprint for the last year. Darren folded his arms. "It's a company decision." That was it. I was escorted out, in front of my team, by a security guard. As I walked to my Tesla, keys still in hand, my fingers trembled. I wasn't angry yet, just numb. I sat inside, closed the door, and stared ahead. Then it hit me. He fired me because I drove a better car than him. He didn't say it. He didn't have to. But in Darren's mind, I had broken an unspoken rule. I wasn't allowed to look more successful than the boss. But what he didn't know was, firing me was the worst mistake he'd ever make. 'Cause I wasn't just a junior dev. I'd built something on the side, something he didn't know about. And now, I had nothing holding me back. Sometimes, the moment your life changes looks just like any other Monday. I woke up at 6:30 a.m., brewed my usual cup of French roast, and headed out the door. But this morning, the sun gleamed a little brighter. Or maybe it just looked that way through the windshield of my brand new Tesla Model 3 Performance. Midnight blue, custom black rims, matte finish, and a minimalist white interior that still smelled like the factory line. It wasn't just a car, it was a symbol, a marker of every hour I'd spent grinding through code after midnight, every freelance gig I took on while my friends were out partying, every extra line of back-end logic I wrote just to push a project to the next level. This car was my reward, not a gift, not a handout. I earned it. I'd been working at Nexus AI, a mid-sized startup in the heart of Silicon Valley, for over 3 years. We weren't Google or Meta, but we were growing. My role as a senior back-end engineer had grown too. I wasn't the flashiest guy on the team, but I delivered. Always. When I pulled into the office parking lot, I didn't expect anyone to care. Teslas were a dime a dozen in Palo Alto. But apparently, a Tesla coming from someone like me, young, quiet, not part of the managers club, raised a few eyebrows. As I stepped out of the car, a few co-workers immediately gathered. "No way, man! Is this yours?" Sam from DevOps practically yelled. "Dude, you finally did it. We all knew you were saving for this," said Priya from front end, running her fingers along the hood. We laughed, took a few photos. Someone even joked about doing a Tesla office tour video for TikTok. But then came Darren. He stepped out of his usual black Mercedes, sunglasses on, tailored blazer sharp as ever. Darren was my boss, head of engineering, charismatic on the outside, controlling on the inside. The kind of guy who called himself a visionary, but only ever recycled other people's ideas and sold them as his own. He stopped in front of my car, didn't smile, didn't nod, just stared. "Nice car," he said after a beat. The tone was cold, a little too casual. "Thanks," I replied. He turned away without another word. That's when I felt it, subtle but real. Something shifted. Over the next few days, things got weird. In our morning stand-ups, Darren started questioning my updates more aggressively. "You're over-engineering this, don't you think? Did you actually test that pipeline, or are you guessing?" I was stunned. He'd never challenged me like this before, at least not in front of the team. He was the kind of manager who gave fake smiles in meetings and saved criticism for Slack DMs. Now, suddenly, I was being undermined. Tasks that were normally handed to me were now assigned to junior devs. My PRs were getting nitpicked. Every other sentence from Darren felt like a passive-aggressive jab. Then, on Thursday, I got the email. Subject: urgent. 1.1. Meeting tomorrow. Check SMS. It was from HR. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I walked into the glass conference room on the second floor. Darren was already there, sitting next to Melissa from HR. She looked uncomfortable. I didn't even get the chance to sit down. Darren spoke first. "We appreciate everything you've contributed to Nexus AI, but the company is restructuring. Effective immediately, we're terminating your employment. You'll be given 2 weeks of severance and your stock options will be reviewed per your agreement." My heart stopped. "What restructuring? There's been no talk of layoffs." "It's a company decision," he said flatly. I looked to Melissa. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Darren," I said slowly, "I've delivered every sprint for the last year. I'm one of the only people in this building who can keep the back end stable when the system crashes. What's really going on?" He just sat there, arms folded. I knew right then. This wasn't performance related. It wasn't restructuring. It was resentment. I drove a better car than him. And in Darren's twisted little world, that meant I was a threat. To him, I was supposed to know my place. Quietly successful, but never more so than the man in charge. That Tesla? It wasn't just a vehicle. It was a violation of his unspoken hierarchy. I was escorted out by a security guard. No goodbye lunch, no final handshake, just cold stares and confusion from co-workers as I walked past. I reached my car, sat in the driver's seat, and stared at the steering wheel for a full minute. Then I smiled, because Darren didn't know something. While he was busy building his petty little empire, I had been building something of my own, something far more powerful than he could imagine. And now I had the time and the motivation to unleash it. The morning after I got fired, I sat in my kitchen in silence. I sipped my coffee, the same way I always did, but the bitterness tasted different now. It wasn't from the beans. It was from betrayal. Still, beneath the sting, something stirred. Not rage, not sadness. Purpose. You see, 6 months before Darren ever noticed my new Tesla, I had already begun working on a side project. A passion-turned-obsession, a neural optimization engine designed to predict consumer behavior patterns across social media platforms. Think, ChatGPT meets TikTok's algorithm, but smarter, faster, and built with a security-first backend unlike anything on the market. I called it Echo Frame. At first, it had been a pet project, something I tinkered with during late nights and lazy weekends. But the more I built, the more I realized something. This wasn't just good, it was disruptive. And Darren had laughed when I pitched a scaled-down version of the algorithm to him 8 months ago. "Simplify it," he said. "We're not trying to reinvent the wheel." He didn't get it then, but he would. I reached out to Priya and Sam, 2 of the few people at Nexus AI I actually trusted. Over a secure video call, I laid out what had happened, the firing, the shady restructuring, and what I wanted to build next. Priya stared into the screen. "Wait, you already have working prototypes of Echo Frame?" I nodded. And not just that, I ran A/B tests on dummy datasets. The predictive accuracy is over 91%. No current system even comes close. Sam's mouth dropped open. "Dude, why didn't you tell us earlier?" "I wanted to be sure it worked. Now I am." They didn't hesitate. "I'm in," said Sam. "Same," added Priya. "Let's show that snake what real innovation looks like." We got to work. Echo Frame was already about 70% built, but turning it into a real product would require infrastructure, UI, testbed environments, and a demo-ready version. I still had cash in savings and freelance contacts from previous gigs. We worked out of my apartment, rotating between my living room and the cafe down the street where nobody asked questions. The vibe? Hacker Garage 2.0. Pizza boxes, code sprints, energy drinks, and whiteboards filled with scribbles that only we could decipher. By the second week, we had something tangible. EchoFrame's UI was sleek. The backend was rock solid. We uploaded synthetic datasets mimicking real-world social engagement patterns. The engine not only predicted trends, it suggested content with high probability virality and optimized ad targeting pathways based on historical data. It was everything Nexus AI had dreamed of, but didn't have the guts to build. I knew we couldn't launch quietly. If I was going to get revenge, real revenge, Darren had to see it. So I sent a press release. New startup EchoFrame launches to disrupt predictive AI landscape. Ex-Nexus AI engineer at the helm. Within 24 hours, tech blogs started picking it up. VentureBeat, TechCrunch, even a mention in the information. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. It was Darren. His voice was tight, controlled. I read about your little project. Cute name. Oh, I said. Glad you're staying informed. He didn't laugh. Listen, I know you're upset about how things ended, but you should really watch yourself. Don't use any proprietary material. Nexus AI won't hesitate to send legal your way. That's when I dropped the hammer. Funny, I said. You mean the idea I pitched 8 months ago that you dismissed as unrealistic? The one you said wasn't worth building? He paused. You kept logs of that? Let's just say I document things thoroughly, just like the performance metrics you forgot to include in my termination paperwork. Another pause. Then he said something that told me I had hit the nerve I was aiming for. You're playing a dangerous game. I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. No, Darren, I'm just playing the one you taught me. He hung up. By the end of that week, we had 3 VCs requesting meetings. One of them, Horizon Ventures, offered a $1.8 million seed round after a single demo. We accepted. The office we moved into, 2 floors above Nexus AI in the same building. And Darren? Oh, Darren would be seeing a lot more of me very soon. The first morning we walked into our new office, just 2 floors above Nexus AI, I could barely contain the smirk on my face. The building still smelled like new carpet and overpriced ambition, but this time I wasn't an employee clocking in. I was the CEO. Priya set up her workstation by the window, overlooking Palo Alto. Sam plugged in our servers, muttering to himself as he configured a demo environment for a potential client meeting we had later that week. And me? I stood at the glass wall, staring down 2 floors at the company that had kicked me to the curb. EchoFrame wasn't just real now. It was alive. We weren't just a startup. We were a storm brewing over Silicon Valley. Our beta rollout stunned people. EchoFrame's predictive AI didn't just outperform current market leaders. It annihilated them. While other platforms hovered around 60–70% accuracy in forecasting user engagement, ours sat comfortably at 90% please and climbing. It could predict content virality, optimize ad timing, and even identify fake trends before they caught fire. We got our first round of users. Boutique ad firms, e-commerce startups, and a digital content syndicate out of New York. And the feedback. This is witchcraft. How the hell did you build this with a team of 3? I need more seats, like now. Investors took notice. By our 3rd week, Horizon Ventures had doubled their commitment, and Sequoia wanted a meeting. And yet, the moment I knew we'd rattled Darren to the core, he copied us. Nexus AI launched a new initiative called Pulse Predict, a rushed, watered-down mimic of our core technology. Their marketing was slick, their budget massive. But the product? Sloppy, laggy, built on old frameworks with too many cooks in the kitchen. I watched one of their demo videos in disbelief. They'd even copied our UI flow, not even subtly. I turned to Sam and Priya. They're scared. Priya leaned back in her chair. Good, let them sweat. But Darren wasn't going to go down without swinging. That Friday, I received a cease and desist letter from Nexus AI's legal team accusing EchoFrame of IP theft and corporate sabotage. It was full of vague threats and posturing, classic legal intimidation. Unfortunately for Darren, I'd anticipated this. I forwarded the letter to my attorney. an absolute pitbull named Lena, whom I'd met years ago at a startup bootcamp. She reviewed the letter and sent back a one-line response. Tell them to go pound sand. I sent a formal rebuttal. Every line of EchoFrame's codebase was original. Every data structure had been independently designed. And yes, we had logs, time-stamped, secured, and ready to go, proving the technology had been in development well before my termination. A week passed, then another. The cease and desist vanished like a ghost. Meanwhile, the media picked up on the drama. TechCrunch ran a piece titled, "Startup EchoFrame Takes on Nexus AI in Predictive AI Showdown." It painted us as the underdog geniuses and Nexus AI as the flailing dinosaur stuck in its own bureaucracy. And boy, did the story spread like wildfire. Podcasts wanted interviews, clients poured in. We had to triple our server capacity overnight. And then came the invitation, a keynote spot at the West Coast AI Expo in San Francisco, the same event where Darren had bragged 2 years earlier about Nexus AI's unchallenged dominance in the AI sector. I stared at the email, my heart pounding with excitement. This was it, our chance to go public, to show the tech world what real innovation looked like, and to do it with Nexus AI sitting 10 feet away, watching helplessly. Let's do it, I told Sam and Priya. At the expo, we were given a 20-minute slot. Sam ran the live demo. Priya handled the tech walkthrough. I told the story, not the whole revenge arc, but the essence of it. Sometimes disruption doesn't come from boardrooms or billion-dollar budgets. Sometimes it comes from 3 people in a coffee-stained apartment who believe that innovation isn't about titles. It's about courage. The crowd roared. As I walked off stage, I caught a glimpse of Darren standing near the back wall, his jaw clenched, his eyes locked with mine. This time, he didn't smirk. This time, I did. After the AI Expo, we weren't just a rising startup. We were the name on everyone's lips. Tech influencers tweeted about us. Venture capitalists called non-stop. Even an executive from Netflix reached out to schedule a casual demo of our software. We were hot, too hot, and that's when I knew something had to go wrong. Success paints a target on your back in Silicon Valley. That Friday, while reviewing our server logs, Sam flagged something strange. Hey Noah, why are we getting weird pings from an IP address tied to an AWS node in Mountain View? It's mimicking one of our authentication tokens, but the payload's off. Like, someone's trying to spoof internal access. I froze. Could it be one of our dev tools misfiring? I offered, hopeful. He shook his head. Nope, it's deliberate. Someone's trying to scrape our predictive model endpoints. The weird part, they're only accessing features we haven't rolled out publicly yet. Priya walked in, overhearing. You think it's Darren? I didn't want to accuse without proof, but my gut was screaming. Nexus AI had the resources to launch cyber recon, maybe even sabotage. But it got worse. That weekend, we did a full audit, and what we found chilled me. The breach didn't come from outside. It came from within. One of our junior developers, a recent hire named Leo, had shared his access credentials through an unsecured channel. When pressed, he cracked. Turns out he'd been approached by someone claiming to be from a talent agency looking to poach engineers for a stealth startup. They'd offered him $20,000 for a simple favor: grant API access to a testing account on EchoFrame. Leo, young and naive, thought it was a harmless request. I confronted him in the conference room, Priya and Sam at my side. Do you understand what you've done? I asked, trying not to raise my voice. He looked terrified. I didn't know they'd use it to... I'm sorry. I thought it was just a recruiter. They said everyone in the valley does it. I closed my eyes and inhaled slowly. In Silicon Valley, betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it wears a friendly hoodie and eats lunch with you. We revoked every token, changed internal protocols, instituted 2FA on every endpoint, and assigned Priya to rebuild the authentication layers from scratch. It set us back 2 weeks, 2 very expensive weeks. But what hurt the most wasn't the sabotage. It was the realization that Darren would stoop this low, that he couldn't beat us in the marketplace, so he tried to break us in the shadows. But he wasn't done. 3 days later, a hit piece landed on a mid-tier tech blog. Title: EchoFrame's Ethics Under Fire. Sources allege stolen tech and toxic leadership. The article was a mess of half-truths, anonymous quotes, and vague claims. It referenced Leo, a former engineer, claiming he was pressured to work 80-hour weeks, and that our codebase looked suspiciously like Nexus AI's early architecture. It reeked of desperation. We had to act fast. I called Lena, our legal eagle, and authorized her to pursue a takedown. Within hours, the blog received a strongly worded legal threat backed by verifiable evidence disproving every claim. They retracted the article and issued an apology, but the damage was done. Doubts had been planted. Investors began to hesitate. One VC group postponed their meeting until legal matters were clarified. A major client paused their onboarding, citing reputational concerns. The storm Darren had conjured was working. I gathered the team. "I won't sugarcoat it," I told them, pacing across the office floor. "This isn't just a tech war, it's a war of narratives now. Darren's playing dirty, but we don't cave. We document, we stay clean, and we fight with code and truth." Sam nodded. "Let's release the new feature early, the predictive influencer matrix." Priya grinned. "And let's do it with full transparency. Show the world we've got nothing to hide." That week, we rolled out our most ambitious update yet, a real-time influencer forecasting tool that helped brands identify rising voices before they went viral. It was revolutionary, and no one, not even Nexus AI, had anything close. Our beta testers exploded with praise. "This is gold. How did you even build this?" And then, salvation. A New York Times tech columnist, one who had attended the AI Expo, ran a glowing piece on us. Title, EchoFrame, the startup that's doing AI right. The article dismantled the rumors, praised our transparency, and compared us favorably to the increasingly stagnant Nexus AI. It went viral on LinkedIn and Twitter. Suddenly the calls resumed. Investors, partners, recruiters. Darren's smear campaign had failed, but I knew this wasn't over. I'd just won the battle. The war was still raging. The invitation came wrapped in politeness and cloaked in corporate formality. An exclusive investor summit hosted by Polaris Ventures, one of the most powerful venture capital firms in the Valley. I knew exactly why we were invited. EchoFrame had caught fire. After our influencer prediction tool went viral and the New York Times piece cemented our credibility, we were suddenly viewed not as underdogs, but as contenders. And Darren? He'd be there. Polaris had invested in Nexus AI years ago, and Darren had always flaunted that relationship like royalty. This summit would be his castle. But now, we were on the guest list too. Sam, Priya, and I prepped for days. We ran mock demos, polished our pitch, ironed our suits. Yes, even Sam. We weren't just attending. We were going to walk in like we belonged. The summit was held at a luxury resort in Half Moon Bay. Tech elites floated around with crystal glasses of wine, talking about quantum computing and the ethics of generative AI while ocean waves crashed behind them. And then I saw him, Darren, standing at the edge of the networking patio in a tailored grey blazer, laughing with a group of execs. He spotted me, his smile faltering for just a split second, then reforming itself like a mask. He walked over. "Noah," he said with that oily charm. "Didn't expect to see you here." I smiled. "Polaris invited us. We just closed a round with Ascend Capital last week." He raised an eyebrow. "I heard. Must have been after they pulled out of our Series D. So that was it. His funding was slipping." "You should congratulate us," I said coolly. "They're smart investors." He leaned in slightly, dropping the pleasantries. "You think this is over, don't you? That you've won?" I didn't blink. "I think it's just starting." Before he could reply, Sarah Hahn from Polaris approached. "Noah, we're ready for you." I followed her inside, leaving Darren standing in the ocean breeze. The investor room was sleek. Floor-to-ceiling windows, polished oak floors, a semicircle of VCs in leather chairs. I could feel my heart thumping in my ears. We launched into the demo. Priya handled the tech walkthrough. Sam broke down the scalability metrics. I focused on the vision, how EchoFrame could become the backbone of intelligent digital marketing across industries. When we finished, there was a beat of silence. Then came the questions. How do you plan to protect your IP? What's your edge over Nexus AI? Have you faced any legal risks regarding past team members? We answered with receipts. Sam laid out our layered security rebuild. Priya highlighted our custom-built ML modules and how they differed from anything in Nexus AI's repository. I walked them through our public transparency reports, investor disclosures, and the signed retraction from that tech blog. We were bulletproof. When we stepped out, we didn't even get a moment to breathe before Darren stormed in with his Nexus AI entourage. But the energy had shifted. His charm seemed brittle, his jokes landed flat, and worst of all, his demo glitched. 10 minutes in, their predictive dashboard froze mid-refresh. His CTO fumbled. Darren tried to redirect the conversation, but the damage was visible. The crown was slipping. Later that evening, the closing reception buzzed with quiet gossip. They're losing their edge. Echo Frame's got the momentum now. Did you see the glitch in Nexus AI's demo? Embarrassing. I stood by the balcony as the sun dipped below the waves, sipping sparkling water, taking it all in. Darren appeared beside me. I underestimated you, he admitted, voice low. I nodded. Yeah, you did. He looked out at the water. You know this game doesn't end here, right? They always want the next big thing. I know, I said. That's why we're already building it. He gave a bitter laugh. Enjoy the ride while it lasts, Noah. It's lonely at the top. I turned to him and said, maybe, but at least I got here without selling my soul. He didn't reply. He just walked away, shoulders a little heavier. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that led to this. The Tesla, the firing, the startup, the betrayal. We hadn't just survived Silicon Valley's cutthroat machine, we'd outplayed it. But I knew this was only the beginning. Success in tech is rented, and the rent is due every day. 6 months after the summit, EchoFrame was no longer a rising star. We were a supernova. Our user base tripled. A-list brands signed onto our platform. And we were fielding calls from VCs and tech giants almost every week. One morning, I walked into the office to find Priya pale-faced, holding a tablet. You need to see this, she said. It was an email from Vanguard Systems. The subject line, acquisition proposal, urgent discussion requested. My stomach turned. Vanguard was the same conglomerate that had backed Nexus AI, the same company Darren had once boasted about as his insurance policy for world domination. And now, they wanted us. The number was staggering. Low 9 figures. One of the largest early-stage offers in Valley history. Sam was already printing it out in the corner. This is it, man. Financial freedom, validation. We beat them. But I wasn't smiling. This didn't feel like a victory. It felt like bait. The call came in that afternoon. Vanguard's EVP of Acquisitions, a stone-faced woman named Cynthia, laid it out with surgical precision. You've captured a key market at the right time. We don't just want your product. We want your team, your roadmap, your insight. What happens to the company name? I asked. We'll fold EchoFrame into Vanguard's AI division. The name won't carry forward. And what about the tech? It'll be integrated into our existing framework, including Nexus AI. There it was. This wasn't just an acquisition. It was a simulation, a way to bury us while salvaging the innovation they couldn't build themselves. I asked for time. We gathered that evening in our cramped war room, walls covered in whiteboards and sticky notes, the same place we'd worked 18-hour days and burned through ramen and red-eye coffee. Sam was all for it. Come on, Noah, this is our ticket out. We've earned it. Priya was hesitant. They want to erase us. Everything we built. We'd be just another line item under Darren's old umbrella. And me? I was torn. Yes, the money would change our lives. But I hadn't come this far just to sell our soul. That night, I drove to the cliffs above Pacifica, same place I used to go when I felt lost. I thought about everything. The Tesla, getting fired, the nights I questioned my worth, the partners who believed in me, the ones who betrayed me. And I realized EchoFrame wasn't just a company. It was proof that people like us, the ones written off, underestimated, discarded, could still rewrite the story. The next morning, we got back on the call with Cynthia. Thank you for the offer, I said. But we're not for sale. There was a long pause. You're making a mistake, she said coolly. Maybe, I replied, but it's ours to make. And just like that, we stepped off the golden escalator and chose to climb the mountain instead. The fallout was swift. Vanguard sent a flurry of follow-up messages. Their tone went from persuasive to threatening. Darren even called. You don't know what you just turned down, he said, half laughing, half furious. I do, I said. I turned down becoming you. Click. Weeks passed. And while the buzz from the acquisition leak had some investors nervous, something unexpected happened. We gained respect, real respect. People in the valley started seeing us not just as a hot product, but as founders with backbone, with a mission. And the offers kept coming, better ones, cleaner ones, partnerships instead of buyouts. We hired new engineers, moved into a bigger space, launched a second product, and through it all, I never forgot the lesson. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying the ones who wronged you. It's about outlasting them, outgrowing them, outshining them, and most of all, choosing your values over their validation. EchoFrame became more than a company. It became a statement that Silicon Valley doesn't belong only to the privileged, the connected, the ruthless. It belongs to the ones who rise after they're pushed down, who rebuild after they're broken, who drive their own story, even if it starts in the parking lot with a red Tesla. Conclusion: if you enjoyed this story of ambition, betrayal, and redemption in the heart of Silicon Valley, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more powerful stories, and share this with someone chasing a dream. Your support keeps these stories alive and helps us keep telling the ones they don't want you to hear. Thanks for watching.